Perang terbuka antara Rusia dan Ukraina belum memperlihatkan tanda-tanda akan berhenti. Pihak Rusia pun terus mengklaim kemenangan di sejumlah titik pertempuran, sementara pihak Ukraina menuduh bahwa operasi militer Rusia sepanjang 2 bulan terakhir hanyalah permulaan untuk menyerang negara lain.
We have detailed information proving that these are fakes. I would like only to say that first of all, the target of our operation in Ukraine are not civilians, are not Ukrainian.
Tapi, menanggapi kritik yang dilancarkan pihak Barat terhadap kebijakan negaranya, Duta Besar Rusia Lyudmila Vorobieva mengaku heran. Menurutnya, seharusnya pihak Barat khawatir pada situasi di Libya yang negaranya hancur, atau di Irak yang lebih dari 1 juta warganya terbunuh, serta sikap Israel yang mengebom Gaza tanpa ada reaksi dari Barat.
If the West is so concerned about the situation in Ukraine, why were they not concerned in the situation, say, in Libya, when the country was completely destroyed, or say in Iraq, where more than approximately 1 million people were killed?
Sahabat Liputan 6, hari ini saya bersama dengan Duta Besar Rusia untuk Indonesia, Lyudmila Vorobieva, yang akan membicarakan tentang representasi Rusia di mata dunia saat ini. Good morning, Madam Ambassador. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm fine.
How was your morning, Madam Ambassador?
Busy. We start at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, then I see. It's been a very busy morning for you, I'm sure. Okay, Madam Ambassador, let's start with the first question first. So, could you first tell us about the Ramadan culture in Russia? Because I think the audience will be very excited to know about the religious tolerance in your country.
You know that in Russia we have around 20 million Muslims by different estimates. It counts for more than 10% of the population of Russia, and we have 9 regions in Russia that are predominantly Muslim, including Tatarstan and Chechnya and 7 others. And actually to highlight the special status of these regions, the heads of these regions are called presidents, like President of Tatarstan or President of Chechnya. In fact, of course, they're governors, but it just highlights how important these regions are for Russia. And the Muslim population in Russia are, the vast majority are not migrants. They are people who've been living in this regions for centuries. By the way, next month in May, we will be celebrating 1,100th anniversary since Islam came to Russia. There will be a big celebration in the capital of Tatarstan, Kazan, and some of the Indonesian officials are also invited to attend these celebrations. In Moscow alone, we have more than 2 million Muslims. So, of course, Ramadan is very important, as it's important for followers of the Islam. It is not a national holiday, but in the Muslim regions, Eidul Fitr, or as we call it, Uraza Bayram, is a holiday. In Moscow, I live near the Cathedral Mosque, which is the biggest mosque in Europe. It was inaugurated by President Putin in 2016, and I know how well Uraza Bayram is celebrated, because during the festivities there are many people who come to the mosque, who pray, and then there is a big celebration in the areas around the mosque. So Muslims are free and are to celebrate the Uraza Bayram, and it is supported by the government of Russia. And indeed, we have this culture of harmonious coexistence of people of different religions, because in Russia, of course, the majority are Russian Orthodox, but we also have Catholics, we have Protestants, we have 3 million Buddhists who live along the border with Mongolia and China. And it has been a tradition that we've followed for centuries.
Yeah, for 1,000 years.
Yeah, for 1,000 years, basically, since Islam came to Russia.
And what is the celebration like? Do you have a certain food that you have during the celebration?
Depends a lot on the region. Of course, food from Tatarstan is very popular in Russia. It is delicious. Tatar people eat a lot of lamb and also some sort of fried rice or nasi goreng, but it's a bit different in taste. But it's rice cooked in a special way with meat and vegetables. And also, what is very famous in Russia is the sweets. For instance, chak-chak. You can find it everywhere in Russia. It's also made from wheat and covered with honey. And it's really delicious. So, but in Chechnya there are other sort of food that people like there. But lamb is a must.
Lamb is a must.
It is a must,
Especially in Indonesia. I don't know if you've tried it before, but in Indonesia during Ramadan we have ketupat.
No, not yet.
Not yet. So it's like a rice covered with leaf. But maybe I just want to know if Russian people also have the same kind of thing there.
Actually, rice is not our staple food because we grow rice in the in the southern part of our country, but Russians who live in the northern part of our country, we cannot grow rice there, so we eat potato and bread made from wheat. But people who live in a warmer climate, they do consume a lot of rice.
Oh, I see. But regardless of that, lamb is a must.
Lamb is a must, yeah.
I see that the religious tolerance in your country is really wonderful, and it could be such a great example for other countries as well. And regarding that, now we would like to visit another topic that I'm sure a lot of people would like to know. And the topic is about Ukraine and the economy. Could you tell us what will be the global impacts of the prolonged economic sanctions in Russia, and what would be the impacts to Indonesia like?
Well, first of all, if we discuss the subject of sanction, there are different aspects to this. Sanctions are absolutely illegal. They're illegitimate. There is no international law that provides for the introduction of sanctions. The only body in the world actually that has the right to impose sanctions is the Security Council. And even if you look in the history, even the sanctions imposed by Security Council are not very effective. Actually, if you think what is the goal of imposing sanctions, is to make the government change its policies. But has it really? If we look at Cuba or Venezuela under US sanctions, or Iran or Afghanistan, and even Russia, we've been under sanctions since 2014, and it didn't make us change our policies. Of course, if you want to hurt the people, that's another thing. I think now the Western leaders are quite cynically stating that the aim of sanction actually is to destroy Russian economy and to hurt Russian people as much as possible. Of course, sanctions hurt, but our economy is quite resilient. And I'm sure that after a period of adjusting, our economy will adapt, as it has been in 2014. On the contrary, actually, it opened some windows of opportunities. For instance, before that, we were very dependent on food import from abroad. After 2014, we started to invest in our own agriculture sector. Now we are absolutely independent. We do import products that we cannot grow, like mango or bananas. But for the staple food, we produce everything ourselves. On the contrary, we export a lot of wheat, a lot of meat, and other agriculture products. Of course, if you're asking about the impact on the global economy, the irony of it that these sanctions are hurting the global economy very much, especially Europe. So the question is, what is the real target of these sanctions? And also the question is why the West is destroying, smashing all the system of international trade and the supply chains that have been so painstakingly been built in the recent decades. In a sense, of course, it's an unfair competition because, for instance, the US are trying to make Europeans buy the energy resources that are much more expensive than those that are coming from Russia, and make European countries be dependent on the US. Because US is not that much involved in trade and economic cooperation with Russia, but Europe is. So there is, I would say, business interest also in imposing these sanctions, but the sanctions are hurting the world economy. You see what is happening to oil and gas prices, to the food prices, but if you want to blame someone for that, of course, it's not Russia. We are committed to all our obligations in providing energy resources. By the way, the US are buying our oil, yeah.
Yes.
And we are committed to our obligations to export food products. So this question should be more addressed towards the United States and the EU leaders. Why are they allowing to be manipulated and hurting their own economies and their own people?
Exactly, because like you mentioned, it's a very interesting fact that they also depend on the staple food that is exported from Russia.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there is a threat of food shortages. I think in Germany, the government already stated that there will not be enough meat, etc., etc. So the question is why all is this happening? Because this is an unproportional, I would say, hysterical reaction to what is happening in Ukraine. And if the West is so concerned about the situation in Ukraine, why were they not concerned in the situation, say, in Libya, when the country was completely destroyed, or say in Iraq, where more than approximately 1 million people were killed, so, or Israel bombing Gaza? Where is this reaction? Where are the sanctions?
Where's the sympathy for that?
Where's the sympathy for people? Or in Yugoslavia in 1999?
So you would like to underline that the sanction is hurting them more than it is hurting Russia?
No, I'm not telling that we're not being hurt. Of course we are, but they're also hurting the European Union countries and the whole global economy, which has not recovered yet from the COVID-19 pandemic.
President Joe Biden is blaming President Putin for the expensive gas in his country. Do you think that is a rational accusation?
No, absolutely not. If you hear what the US are saying, Russia is behind anything bad that is happening in the world, and it hasn't started on the 24th of February when our operation in Ukraine has been launched. It happened much earlier than that. Since 2014 we are accused of anything bad that is happening in the world. And of course this trend of increasing prices for energy resources also has not started yesterday. It has been there for some time already, and COVID-19 also contributed to these disruptions of supplies and of production. So how can you blame everything on Russia? It's absolutely irrational.
And last month, Greenpeace activists blocked the transfer of oil from Indonesia to Pertamina. Greenpeace said that buying oil from Russia means funding the war. What is your comment on that?
Also, illogical and irrational accusations. And what has Greenpeace to do with our special operation in Ukraine? And how can it's you know, it is just I would say it's a sort of propaganda, of course, and if you really look at it, it's absurd accusations again, and it will be hurting not only Russia but Indonesian people who need the oil.
Okay. And last year, you announced that Russia decided to give more scholarships to Indonesia. Will the economic sanctions impact the scholarship availability for Indonesian students?
Absolutely not. Our government has increased by 100 scholarships the number of grants that are being given to Indonesian students. Now it's 261, and I can tell you there's a big demand. We've received more than 1,000 requests for Indonesian students, and in the future, I'm sure we will see more scholarships given to Indonesians, because with your population of practically 300 million people, there's a big demand, and much more Indonesian students can study in Russia. You know, even if we look at your neighboring countries, Malaysians have around 3,000 students in Russia, Vietnam around 1,000 students. So, of course, I think education in Russia is a great opportunity because it's of high quality. And the additional bonus is also learning Russian language, which is spoken by 300 million people in the world.
That's very cool to a lot of Indonesian people.
I hope so.
And I'm sure that a lot of Indonesian students are also interested in the history between Russia and Indonesia. We've been friends for many years, and it started since Sukarno became president himself, right?
Yes, absolutely. President Sukarno visited our country 4 times, and there are many interesting facts actually that highlights the very close relations that we enjoyed. First of all, do you know that the song Rayuan Pulau Kelapa became very popular in Russia? In the 60s, it was translated into Russian language, and the reason for that is that a documentary was made on Indonesia before President Sukarno's visit to Russia in 1959, and the soundtrack for this documentary was Rayuan Pulau Kelapa, which was translated into Russian. So many people of the older generation, they know this song in Russian language, and the title of this song in Russian is Indonesia, My Love. It's a beautiful song, of course. Another interesting fact is that actually President Sukarno contributed in reconstructing a mosque in St. Petersburg. At that time it was Leningrad. When he visited this city, he saw a building that reminded him of a mosque, and indeed it was a mosque, but it was not used as a mosque at that time. So he asked our leader Nikita Khrushchev if it's a mosque, and Khrushchev said no, and President Sukarno asked Khrushchev to reconstruct it, to renovate it and make it a mosque, and it was done, and it's still there in St. Petersburg. It's very famous, the Blue Mosque. And when President Megawati Sukarno-Putri came to Russia in 2003, she visited St. Petersburg, and she went to pray in that mosque. So there, and of course Gelora Bung Karno, which was built by our country, the hospital Rumah Sakit Persahabatan, the monument Tugu Tani. It was also built by a Russian sculptor. So even in Jakarta, you can see some symbols of our friendship. And the latest one I would like to mention is the monument to Gagarin, Yuri Gagarin, the first astronaut, or we call them cosmonaut. It is now, it has been inaugurated last year, and the monument itself is a present from Moscow to people of Jakarta. So now it's in Taman Mataram, and anyone who is interested can see it.
The symbol of friendship.
A symbol of friendship
Between Russia and Indonesia.
Absolutely.
And Indonesian people know that mosque as Sukarno Mosque.
Yes, we know it as a blue mosque, but yes, in Indonesian known as Sukarno Mosque. Yeah.
Because they know about the history and they like to call it more, oh, that is Sukarno Mosque. And then back again about the situation between Russia and Ukraine.
Do you have any comment regarding the recent accusation of civilian deaths at Bucha in Ukraine?
Yeah, the city of Bucha, it's called Bucha. Yeah, it has been proved beyond any doubt that these are fakes. I will maybe not go into details because you can, if our viewers are interested, they can visit the website of the embassy. We have detailed information proving that these are fakes. I would like only to say that, first of all, the target of our operation in Ukraine are not civilians, are not Ukrainians. We're not in war with Ukrainians, because we see our Ukrainians as our very close relatives, our brothers and sisters, and we're trying to do whatever we can to spare the civilians. That's why maybe the operation, many think that it is progressing slowly, too slowly. But the reason for that is not because we don't have enough resources, but because we are trying to spare people, even the armed forces of Ukraine, but of course civilians. Wherever our troops come, they open humanitarian passages for civilians to be able to leave, and we distribute humanitarian assistance. So far, around 500 tons of humanitarian assistance has been distributed, and it's a proven fact that our armed forces have distributed food and drinks for people in Bucha, and when our armed forces left, the mayor of Bucha, who commented on that, and he's of course allied with the Ukrainian side, he never mentioned any atrocity or any killings of the civilians. So this is just a part of information war against Russia. And not only Bucha, but again the recent events in Kramatorsk, when there was a Ukrainian missile, .U, was hit the city, and some of the civilians have been killed. But Russia doesn't use this kind of missiles. It's an old Soviet style one, and it is used by Ukrainian armed forces. That's the horror of it, actually, that the Ukrainian government, which came to power after a coup d'etat in 2014, they are killing their own people. They are not having pity on their own people. On the contrary, we are trying to save the more civilians we can.
Regarding the Tochka-U missile, that is also linked to my question. I wanted to ask you that. So who do you think is behind the attack?
Ukrainian armed forces, they have this kind of missile, and no doubt that they have used it again. Why are they doing it against their own civilians? So, you know, how can you really understand why the government is not trying to spare their own people. Actually, they are also preventing Ukrainians from leaving the cities by humanitarian passages that are opened by Russian armed forces.
And a week ago, there was also a video of Ukrainian soldiers executing Russian soldiers. That could potentially violate the Geneva Convention for killing prisoners of wars. But what is your comment on that?
It's not a potential violation, it is a violation, of course, and terrible videos, and not only they're killed, but they are tortured. We are planning to present all these documents to the United Nations, and there's a contrast on how we treat the Ukrainian prisoners of war. The recent information is that only yesterday more than 1,000 military servicemen from Ukrainian side surrendered in Mariupol. And what we hear from our Ministry of Defense, their life will be guaranteed, that they will be safe. They will be interrogated by our investigation agencies and probably released after that. But no one will hurt them. On the contrary, those who were wounded now are in hospitals and being treated in Russian hospitals.
I see. Is Russia going to use a different military strategies in Ukraine regarding or during Ramadan?
I'm not the Minister of Defense to define these strategies. Actually, I think that there will not be really a change in strategies. What I read in the news that during Ramadan, as you know, there are military men from Chechnya, which are Muslims, also taking part in this operation. For observing Ramadan, actually it will be their choice. If they don't feel that they're able to observe all the restrictions during Ramadan, they are free not to do so. But when they return back home, they need to compensate. So that was the statements by our Islamic leaders.
Is there any possibility of a meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky happening soon, and especially after the negotiation in Istanbul, Turkey?
There's always a possibility, but the question is there any added value to these meetings? From my point of view, this meeting could happen when there would be tangible results coming from the negotiations. So far, the Ukrainian side we don't see the intention of the Ukrainian side to reach a result that will stop the ongoing crisis in Ukraine. And one of the reasons for that is that they are instigated by their Western partners, which have been pushing Ukraine actually in this conflict. So a lot will depend on the position of Ukrainian side in these negotiations. They're going on, actually they're going online, but so far we don't see this willingness of Ukrainian side to have a tangible result.
I think many Indonesians will be disappointed if President Putin skips the G20. Is there any update of his attendance? And if President Putin skips the G20, will Russia send other high-level official or minister?
There is no question so far for President Putin skipping the G20 summit. The invitation by President Joko Widodo has been issued, and our president has preliminarily confirmed his intention to attending the G20 summit. So we really hope that he will come to Indonesia. His visit was planned 2 years ago in conjunction with the celebration of our 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Russia and Indonesia, but it didn't happen because of the COVID, unfortunately. As ambassador, I really hope that our president will visit Indonesia and, of course, attend the G20 summit.
So the recent update about his attendance is that he is still attending.
He intends to do so.
Do you think that Janet Yellen is trying to bully Indonesia when she says that US won't send delegations if Russia attends the G20?
It's bullying, it's blackmailing, it's applying pressure. You can name it all this. You can use all these terms, but we do appreciate the position of the government of Indonesia that very rightly actually focuses on the economic agenda. The G20 is a global forum that should basically discuss global economic and financial issues that are numerous, especially after COVID-19 disrupted many areas of international trades and economic and financial systems. So, to drag in political issues, it will just divert attention from issues that are really important for the whole world. And discussing these issues without Russia, it will make the forum less relevant. But for those who don't want to attend, I think that's their own business, actually. But the majority of G20 members are attending.
Yeah, because the slogan for this year is "Recover Together, Recover Stronger."
Absolutely, and Russia does support the priorities of Indonesia G20 presidency, which are recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic, the strengthening of the global healthcare system, the digital transformation, the energy transformation. These are very important issues. Why there is a need to discuss other issues that are not relevant to the G20 agenda.
And why is there a need to exclude themselves from this kind of agenda that is needed by them too?
Absolutely, and I think it's quite, I would say, first of all, illogical position, or even cowardly position, because if you try to pretend that Russia is not there, it will not make Russia vanish from the world map or make Russia less important in global issues. For instance, energy. How can you discuss energy issues without Russia? How can excluding yourself, as you said, from this kind of meetings help solve the Ukrainian crisis?
Yes, and how does it help your own country itself?
Absolutely.
And do you have any comment on the decisions to suspend Russia on the Human Rights Council in the UN?
Again, it's an illogical position, and what result will it bring to the international community? Okay, you may not agree with what Russia is doing in Ukraine, but again, if you want to resolve the crisis, maybe it's better to talk to the Russian side about the events, and of course, it also will not make the work of the Council more balanced. I'm sure there will be a lot more of pressure from the Western countries that use actually human rights as a weapon against other countries. We've seen it many times, or democracy as a weapon or as a instrument to interfere in the domestic affairs of other countries. So this is illogical position that will not contribute to making our world a better place.
I see then. Do you have any last statement regarding the situation now?
Again, we are very appreciative of the balanced position of Indonesian government, and actually for the support that we see from many people in Indonesia, we see that there is no Russophobia, there's no anti-Russian sentiments in Indonesian society. And of course, for us, for Russia, Indonesia is a very good friend and partner. And we really cherish these very good relations that we have been enjoying for so many years.
Thank you very much for talking with us today, Madam Ambassador. Itu dia sahabat Liputan 6, percakapan kita bersama dengan Duta Besar Rusia untuk Indonesia, Lyudmila Vorobieva. Nantikan bincang Liputan 6 selanjutnya dengan berbagai narasumber lainnya yang juga tak kalah menarik. Sampai jumpa lagi.